Hello, everyone. Jackie Tomlin here, and welcome to season 2 of When Spirit Speaks podcast. Thank you all for your love and support. Your comments and your participation have made all the difference in the world. If you have ideas, let me know. If you have guests, let me know. Anything you want to discuss, just let me know. My website is jackietomlin.com, and you may always reach me via text or phone call at 804-731-2302. Okay, so we spent a whole lot of time in our first season of talking about, just what the title of the podcast is When Spirit Speaks. Okay. Today I want to talk to you about something a little bit different. Okay. And what we're going to talk about today is when spirit doesn't speak. Okay. That is when sometimes you need that clear-cut answer. You need that direction, and you need it now. Okay. And generally this is when something has shifted or something has gone majorly wrong in your life. Okay. This is a patience thing as well, but sometimes spirit doesn't speak, and I think the biggest thing is knowing what that looks like and what can you expect. And the only thing I can do is share some experiences with you. Now, I do want to say that today's broadcast is going out to my cousin Kimberly and her mother Joyce, both going through some medical issues right now, as I have been in their shoes. And yeah, I'm asked this often. What do you do? What do you do when everything goes wrong all at one time and you don't have the clear-cut answer and you don't know what to expect? You live in the moment and you take it one moment at a time. Okay. So a little bit of my background real quickly. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. Okay. Things went wrong for me with my health. I've always been a healthy person, or so I had thought. Never on medication, anything like that. I mean, there was no problem. I mean, I did smoke and I'm no longer a smoker. I had everything go wrong pretty much all at one time. I wound up having 8 heart casts with many stents put in, an endorectomy. And, when you sit there and you think, oh my God, it couldn't have gotten any worse than I got through this. I had a brain aneurysm. Okay. There was a couple heart attacks, a couple strokes there, led to it for them finding a brain aneurysm. I did have brain surgery, and they took 3 trips into my brain. Now, once you think you've cleared all that and you're good, you end up with that final mammogram that came back and they said you have breast cancer. So that resulted in 5 breast surgeries. And honestly, I have 2 more surgeries to go in 2023. But if you were to look at me and you didn't know that story, you would have not a clue any of that has gone on with me. Not a clue, other than the amount of medication I take because I am a heart patient. Now, granted, I did all of this and all these procedures in a course of 27 months. Was the rug pulled out from under me? You better believe it. In a way that is hard to describe, but I'm going to get to it later on in the episode. This was all actually an answer to a prayer, oddly enough. But I am constantly asked, did Spirit speak to me while I was going through this? Yes, but not in the way that you would expect. Okay. Not in the clairvoyant way of doing a psychic reading. Not the clear-cut answer that I was seeking. Okay. Did I feel alone and abandoned at times? I did. I absolutely did. Okay. So the first thing you're going to have to do is, when you're waiting and Spirit is not speaking, you're going to have to dig into your faith even deeper than you ever have before. Okay. And you're going to have to be consistent with digging for your faith. It's okay to have bad days, I mean, I did. I'm not gonna lie, I had bad days. Um, but be consistent with your faith, and you'll find that the bad days will soon turn to like half a bad day. And eventually, maybe it was just a couple of hours in the day. And soon it was a couple hours in the week. And then I almost described it as maybe I felt like I was numb, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was the way Spirit was speaking to me. Okay. Now, what you need to remember is fear comes from the enemy and not Spirit. Okay. And so does anger, because it's kind of like a grieving process. I did have times I was angry. I was mad. I was so mad. And I was like, what have I done so wrong to deserve all of this? So yeah, I was mad. You're going to go through that as well. Okay. You have to remember, in digging deep and waiting for Spirit to speak to you, that you didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this path. Whatever you're going through, you didn't ask for this. You were led there. Okay. So if you're led there, you're led there for a reason. Okay. And there's two things I know for certain. Spirit has led you there, one, because you're strong enough to get through it. And two, you're being redirected and you're being rebuilt for something better. Do you know what the answer to that is? No, you don't. This is what you're waiting on. Okay. And then I did have one time, this last time in the hospital, it was an emergency surgery. And I think the word is sepsis is where I was at. They weren't even sure I was going to make it to the OR or through the surgery. And it was the first time that Spirit did speak clearly to me and let me know it wasn't about me. None of it was about me. This end part, the bad part, right? What I was going through at that moment, I was in the hospital, I think it was 6 days. It was actually not about me. It was about one of my doctors. Okay. So why me then? Why was I going through this? And the answer was because I was strong enough to. Okay. Not much you can say, not much you can do about that. But there's two things that I need you to understand. Okay. You're not being tested and you're not being punished, because I often hear that. And like I said, I felt that way too. What in the world had I done to get to this point? Had I lived my life so bad that it was all going to unravel all at one time and this was going to be the end? I had these thoughts just the same way you do. Okay. You're being redirected, and sometimes those redirections, they're never hard. They're never easy. It's never in your plan. And they never come at a time that you're expecting them to come. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for you. It's a challenge of where your faith is, and it's a challenge of knowing how Spirit speaks to you in different ways. Like I said, we covered this in season 1 on different episodes, from synchronicities and things like that. But there is another gift that we really didn't tap into, and that's the gift of knowing. Okay. That gift of knowing is something that comes deep within. It is an actual gift. It is your intuition. Okay. And it's not being in denial. It's an actual knowing. Okay. And make sure that what you know is not negative, because if you know something and you know it's negative, that's not coming from Spirit. It's coming from something else. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Okay. If you're giving a bad report, don't go into denial on it. But if you're waiting on test results, don't go into what you call the knowing or expecting the worst. This is the time that I know that you need Spirit to speak to you. And I know this because, like I said, I've been right there with you. Just dig deeper. Dig deeper into your faith. You know, there are a couple of instances I did actually get the reports of what I didn't want to hear. I did not realize they could put a time frame on you with heart disease, and they did. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And equally disturbing is when they come out and they drop that big C word on you that I had breast cancer. That was also a hard one to swallow as well. So what do you do in these instances? First of all, you accept it. You accept it. If they've put a timeline on your life, for me, it was 24 months. You accept it. Okay. You do everything the doctors tell you to do. You take the medicines, you do this, you do the routine. You just don't argue, you just do it. Okay. And you accept it. And then the biggest thing is you keep on living. And you keep on living because you know that one day someone's going to tell your story. And one day you're actually going to inspire someone else. You take what you can from your experience and you keep going. This is how Spirit speaks to you. Now, with me personally, and that knowing, my knowing did not come until after my acceptance. Okay. And that's the first thing is you've got to ground yourself, center yourself, and accept what's going on with you. You have to accept you didn't ask for it. You have to accept the big one. You have no control over this. No control whatsoever. You have no control over your situation. You have no control over your health. You have no control. You are not running the ship. Then the knowing comes. And for me, that knowing was the sense of peace and a sense that I was being redirected and the sense that everything was going to be fine. This wasn't the end. And it amazed a lot of people where I was mentally. It still does. It still does for everything that I've been through. But that knowing kicks in and you know you're being rebuilt for something else. You know you're at peace with where you're at. And when I reached the point, I went through two things. I went through one thing, and when you went in and you hear the doctors tell you that it's you're still talking about a timeline. Okay. What your timeline is looking like. And it would upset me tremendously. And then I put this barrier around me that I went in there and told them I didn't want to hear about it anymore. Didn't want to discuss it. Let's discuss my plan from this visit to the next. I don't want to discuss anything else. It's the best thing I ever did. Because somewhere in there, that gift of knowing kicked in that I was going to prove them all wrong. And I'm not talking about one doctor or two. I'm talking about an entire medical team that I was going to prove them wrong. And that's how Spirit spoke to me, was I knew that they were going to prove me wrong. That I would be able to prove them wrong. Now, above all, what I want you to understand, whether it's your health, whether it's your marriage falling apart, something big going on with you. This is when you feel that you're being punished. This is when you feel that you're being tested. Okay. And again, I tell you, Spirit doesn't work that way at all. Okay. But what you need to know in all of this and throughout all of this process, you need to know and you need to understand there's no such thing as an unanswered prayer. Okay. Once you look back over the years, what all have you prayed for? What was the outcome? What was the end all be all then? Was it your divorce? Did you get through it? Was it financially you were down and out, you weren't going to make ends meet? Did you have a new beginning? Because I promise you, if you sit back and you look over what you've been through in the course of your life, and granted, what you're going through now is equally as bad, okay? But what you need to understand bigger than anything, that not only are your prayers answered, it's always more than you ask for. And I think a lot of people forget that. It is way more than what you've ever asked for. So it's a lot to think about. And like I said, I'm shouting out to my cousins because they are going through similar things with their health. It is unexpected. And it's when you take strong, independent women and you put us down, that's one thing in itself. But when you put us down for our health, that's another whole ball game. What you need to know is temporary. It's just temporary. Look at your past problems. Look at what you've been through. Look at what you've overcome. And yeah, maybe this supersedes it. Maybe this is the biggest problem you have ever been through. Okay. So now the next question is, what do you do when Spirit doesn't speak? Spirit's not speaking you in the gift of knowing. Spirit's not speaking to you audibly. There's no synchronicities. There's no signs. What do? You do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Let me repeat that. When Spirit does not speak to you, what do? You do nothing. Because Spirit will speak to you on Spirit's time, not yours. That wait could be a day. That wait could be a week. Could be longer. You keep living. You keep doing what you're doing. You keep plugging forward day by day. You know the signs, you know the synchronicities. And if you didn't, go back on this podcast and listen to season 1, because they're all around you. But when Spirit doesn't speak, you do nothing until it does, because I promise you it will. Guys, I hope you can take away something positive from today's podcast. I realized in speaking with some of you, not just not just Kimberly Joyce, let's give a shout out to Amanda up in Canada. We're all going through something. Okay. Sometimes Spirit doesn't speak in the way we want. Sometimes Spirit does not speak when we need it to. But you need to know each day is different. Each hour is different, and things can change up in the most amazing way ever. Never quit praying, guys. There's no such thing as an unanswered prayer. Thank you guys for listening. Cheers to season 2. I thank you all for your love and support, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye.